She emptied our bank account, while I was thousands of miles away, fighting 120-degree heat and 14-hour shifts. The divorce? Sent by text at 3:04 a.m. My name? Gone from the house deed. My savings? Erased. She even put her new boyfriend in my bed before I'd even stepped off the oil rig. But what she didn't know is that 5 years ago I started preparing for this very moment. I wasn't just earning a paycheck. I was building a firewall. And when she tried to take everything, she learned I'd already taken back control. Stick around. You'll want to see how this ends. It was 3:04 a.m., local time, when her message came through. I was 7,200 miles away, offshore, in the middle of the Persian Gulf. 14 hours into a brutal shift. The deck was still radiating heat, 116 degrees that night, and I could barely feel my legs when I dropped onto the bunk. I pulled out my phone, hoping for something small. A good night, a photo of the dog, anything that reminded me why I kept going. Instead, the message said, "I'm leaving. I'm in Palm Springs with Devin now. I've moved out and taken the money. Don't come back." Attached was a screenshot of our joint account. Balance, $0.07. A kiss emoji at the end, like this was some kind of joke. I didn't throw my phone, didn't scream. I just sat there, listening to the hum of the ventilation system, feeling the metal wall against my back. 18 years together. Gone with one text, while I was halfway across the world keeping our life afloat, and that's when I knew. This wasn't just betrayal, this was a heist, and if she thought I'd just let it happen. She clearly forgot who she married. I didn't sleep that night, not from heartbreak, from clarity. Looking back, the signs were there. The missed video calls, the sudden yoga retreats to Santa Barbara, the $2,800 charge at a hotel just 12 miles from our home in Odessa. On a weekend, she said she was visiting her sister. I didn't question her, because after nearly 2 decades together, part of me still wanted to believe she was just tired. Not treacherous, but I'd prepared anyway. 3 years ago, after watching a buddy lose everything in a messy divorce, I set up a separate holding company. Everidge Systems, LLC. With help from my cousin Drew, a tax attorney in Dallas. My overtime bonuses, offshore hazard pay, even a few mineral royalties, all routed there, declared on taxes separate from marital assets. She didn't know it existed, and I planned to keep it that way. The next morning, I emailed Drew with just 2 words. Protocol Winter. He replied in under a minute, already on it. And that's when I knew. She hadn't destroyed my life. She'd just moved up my timeline. Because when someone shows you who they really are, you don't argue. You activate contingency. I spent the rest of that day on autopilot, drilling through my shift like I had 100 times before, but my mind kept circling that message, her words, that kiss emoji. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a power play. Back in my bunk that night, I opened the backup laptop Brendan had helped me encrypt years ago. I started digging. There were transfers I'd missed, small at first, maybe $2,000 here, $3,500 there, disguised as house repairs or investment opportunities. But over the past 90 days, the withdrawals had grown bolder. Krista hadn't just taken $142,000. She'd been draining accounts for over a year. The total came to $214,000, and then came the real gut punch. Brendan sent me a document showing she'd changed the beneficiary on my life insurance, without my consent, 6 months ago. Suddenly, this wasn't about a woman leaving her husband. This was a strategy. She was erasing me on paper before she ever walked out the door. Have you ever looked at someone you loved and realized they were playing a long game you didn't even know you were in? Let me know in the comments if you've ever missed the signs, because right then I knew this wasn't just betrayal, this was premeditated theft, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The next morning I skipped breakfast and called Brendan. "Operation Cold Return," I said. He didn't hesitate. "Already filed." That was our code phrase, something we'd set up years ago after watching one too many friends lose everything in a divorce. With Brendan's help, I had quietly routed 70% of my income into a holding company. Separate, legal, and untouchable Winterlight Holdings. It wasn't hidden. It was protected. Brendan had also prepared an emergency motion to freeze all assets connected to Krista's forged transfers. He filed a fraud report with the bank, and by noon the $214,000 was locked pending investigation. But I wasn't done. I contacted my lawyer, Thomas. We'd built a case with phone records, forged signatures, and even text messages she didn't know I had access to, thanks to her syncing her new phone to my old Apple ID. That afternoon, I bought a plane ticket home, quietly. No calls, no posts. I needed her to believe I was still 6,000 miles away while I moved into position. Because sometimes the most powerful move is silence. Have you ever planned something so carefully you knew the exact second it would land? Let me know in the comments, because Krista was about to learn that I wasn't the man she thought she could outsmart. I wasn't mad. I was ready. 3 weeks later, I stood on the porch of my new cabin, 40 acres outside Missoula, Montana, a place I bought 5 years ago. She never knew it existed. The divorce was final. The judge ruled in my favor. Krista's forged signatures, the fake listing, the emotional abuse claim, all dismissed. The assets came back to me, and her attempt to sell the house behind my back, blocked and reported. She walked out of court with nothing but her purse and a pending fraud investigation. Devin, he vanished 2 days after being served, took her remaining cash and disappeared into the Arizona desert. Brendan said he'd done it before. He'll do it again. But I didn't care anymore. Not really. Because for the first time in decades, I wasn't working on someone else's timeline. I wasn't surviving rotations or fixing messes at home. I was breathing mountain air, drinking coffee I brewed myself, watching the pine trees sway without anyone asking me to do more. And when people ask me what I'd say to her now, nothing. Some victories don't need words, just peace. Have you ever let go, not to lose, but to win quietly? If you've been through something like this, you're not alone. Drop a comment. Your story matters. That cabin in Montana isn't just land, it's freedom. Freedom from noise, from doubt, from the weight of someone else's decisions. Every morning I sit on the porch swing I built with my own hands. The pine trees don't ask questions. The breeze doesn't betray you. And that silence, it heals. She thought she ended my story with a text, but all she did was set the final chapter in motion. Not every victory looks like a courtroom win. Sometimes it's sipping bourbon with your boots off, knowing you've got nothing left to prove. If you've ever felt erased, replaced, discarded, just know this: You can lose everything and still keep your worth. You can be left behind and still come out ahead. Drop a comment if this hit close to home, because your story matters too, and you're not done yet.